Say you wanted to change the value of an adjustment that you've made through time, automate it through time. That's called keyframing, and it's a very, very powerful concept within Premiere. So here we have this adjustment layer that has Gaussian blur on it, so it's making everything below it blurry. But say this is like some sort of dream sequence, or I don't know, the character is getting ready to pass out, and we want the blurriness to increase over the duration of this adjustment layer. So what we can do is, actually I'm going to get rid of this fade out so we can watch this whole thing straight through without edited opacity. I can come to the very first frame of this adjustment layer and then select it. And I see I'm on the very first frame, and I can see Gaussian blur is here. It's in effect turned on. In Premiere, anything that you see this stopwatch icon next to, that means that this adjustment, this parameter, can be automated through time. And that happens here in the Effect Controls tab. And so let's say I want to automate the blurriness through time. So I would click the stopwatch to toggle animation, turn it on. And now we have a timeline here, and we have a little diamond shape here. That's a keyframe. And this is a keyframe navigator. So if this little dot is blue, that means there's a keyframe there, and you can turn it off or turn it on by clicking that blue dot. So at this point in time, we want our blurriness to be 0. Now let's come back over here to the timeline and move the playhead to the very last frame. And just so we see it, I'm going to get rid of this fade out. There we go, there's our very last frame. I'm going to select the adjustment layer again because that's where the Gaussian blur is applied. Now at this point in time, I want this to be extremely blurry. They're all the way to like a color field. And so now we have our two keyframes there. And I can navigate between them using these little arrows here. So let's go to the previous keyframe. It's there, and I can see the value is 0. Go to the next keyframe, which just happens to be the last one. And I can see the value is 1,616 pixels of blur. So let's come back into our timeline and watch that through. And you can see that the blurriness is increasing as we play through. And you can actually see the blurriness number changing by itself as it goes from this point, which was 0, to this point, which was 1,616. All right, I'm actually going to delete this adjustment layer. What about some other things? Let's see here. This clip is kind of interesting because it's rotating, but what if I wanted it to rotate more? Well, let's do the same thing. I'm going to zoom in to the very first frame. And then here I have my rotation value. So I can turn that on. I want it to rotate. And let's see here. It's rotating counterclockwise. Let's go to the last frame. And let's put in many more rotations. That's a little awkward because it's a widescreen image and now it's getting rotated within this frame, so we have the black video showing up on the corners. But maybe we'll deal with that with like a zoom, a scale or something. Whoops. I just wanted to rotate a whole lot. Sure. But let's end at least filling the frame. Great. So again, at this point in time, it's this many rotations. And if I go to the previous keyframe at this point in time, it's 0 rotations. So if I zoom out here so we can see this progressing and I hit play, you can see the clip rotates. This might be useful in some instances. Keyframing is very useful. This example is not useful. Great. Now there's a couple of different ways that we can have Premiere move into and out of the motion. And if you right click right on the keyframe, we have these different controls for what the keyframe does and how it controls moving in and out of the value change. And yeah, and you could just experiment with these. They're all sort of like linear is the most straightforward, and these are all, they curve the way the value changes. Or hold just keeps that state until the next keyframe instead of automating between them. But ease in and ease out are extremely useful. I use these all the time. So let's apply an ease out to this. So you can see the keyframe changed. And now when I hit play, instead of instantly starting to rotate, it'll ramp into it. Let's change this to an ease in. Now instead of instantly just stopping, it'll slowly stop. So you made a mistake and you made a state change here and you didn't mean to. You could always toggle that keyframe off by clicking this button, or toggle it on. Or you could actually say this change, let me get rid of this guy here. Say I want this rotation to happen, but I want that change to happen much more quickly. I want this point, this state of rotation to be arrived at more quickly. Well, I could just click on that keyframe and drag it forward in time. So now instead of from this point in time to this point in time, that change happening, now that change is going to happen from this point in time to this point in time. So you'll see it'll go much more quickly. And then now, this is the most confusing example. And now this is the rotation that I captured in camera. All right, great. So that is keyframing. I think that example was probably pretty atrocious, but you can see any of these values you can automate through time. So even opacity, you could automate that through time. Scale. Here, let's get rid of all that rotation. So I'm going to toggle off the rotation automation. This is, you want to delete existing keyframes? Yes, I want to delete those. Now maybe this clip here that's slowly spinning, maybe I want to like scale up and zoom in on what? Maybe this bowl of rice that I've just covered. So let's do that. So at this frame, we are going to change scale and position. We want to scale up and zoom in on this bowl, but keep it centered. So let's go to the very last frame. Here. Now let's scale up. And let's reposition so that that red lid is centered. Oh, that's the edge of my frame. Let's scale up a little bit more. Great. And so now as this clip plays, scale and position will change so that we arrive at this location. And here we go. Well, that made that super dramatic, so that was very interesting. But anyway, so you can see that keyframes is extremely powerful.